Hi folks, welcome back. I want to start off the week by hoping that you all were successful with your first quiz on chapters 1 through 3. I'm sure you were. Before we get into just kind of an overview of chapter 4 from our textbook and also the Leader in You, I want to touch upon a few few topics, few subjects that I want to make sure that I'm clear with and that you have an understanding of moving forward. First, you're going to see, if you haven't already, the grading rubric that I've posted for discussion questions, and we'll be utilizing that moving forward. So I want you to become familiar with that. That is going to help you, it's going to guide you through what exactly I'm expecting in a quality post. So I'm wanting you a lot of times to refer to the textbook. I'm asking you to give your own opinions, and I'm also asking you to do a little bit of outside research. Remember, this is a 4-credit course. It's a lot of independent learning, but it's still, we are still expected to utilize those kind of 4 hours of in-class. And a lot of that is going to be, kind of doing research on your own. So that grading rubric will really, really assist you, as I said, with knowing when you post something, the grade that you should really anticipate getting. If you're covering each one of those criteria in the grading rubric, then you should have no question that you should be receiving full credit for those posts. Next, I want to talk about, some folks have reached out to me, you weren't clear on certain material. That's absolutely fine. I always encourage those questions. Please, if it's during my office hours, if it's email, I really try to answer those as quick as possible. But please, remember, for me to clarify things, I need you to be clear as well. So a lot of folks are in multiple classes of mine, and they're emailing me asking questions. However, I have no idea which class you're asking the question on. So moving forward, in order for me to get back to you in a timely manner, what I expect, and really, I really probably won't be responding to many emails unless you're doing this, is in the subject line, I want you to put the name of the course. So example, this would be HSMA 1103 or BUSN 1157. I want you to put both of that in there, and then after that, write question. So HSMA 1103 / BUSN 1157 question. Then I know exactly who the student is, what class you're asking on, and be as descriptive as possible. And as I said, it's difficult. We don't have that in-class time. We are doing the class online, so there are some hurdles to clarity, and I'm learning as I go, just as you folks are. So let's learn together. But again, both of us be as clear as possible. In regards to grading, I am doing a lot of grading. Believe me, grading will be slower than maybe you anticipated. Understand that if there's 4 questions each week, there's 20 of you in the class. It adds up to, each week I'm looking at about 100 plus posts and responses in each class. So I am the type of instructor that likes to read through those individually and to make sure that I'm giving you the grade you should be getting, you should be receiving, and as well as if you're not answering something clear, that I make sure that I address that as well, and I ask you to go back and re-answer that question, or sometimes I might just try to give you the answer to assist you moving forward. So those grades will be in your grade book. If there are any issues with grades not being posted or something doesn't look right, again, send me an email and I'll clarify that. So let's get right into Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called Understanding the Restaurant Industry. And I think it's a little bit how the Vladimir and Angelo say the restaurant industry. They're really talking about the food service industry. So at the beginning, they talk about kind of the restaurant segments. Really, I like to rename that the food and beverage segments. It's not necessarily, or food service segments. It's not just restaurants they're discussing. The chapter talks about, the book reports in 2009 there were 13 million people employed in the restaurant industry, with a little under 1,945,000 establishments with yearly revenue sales of $566 billion. That was in 2009. I looked up the most recent projections in 2015, and it's pretty pretty astonishing to see that in 2015, they're expecting it to go from 13 million that we reported in 2009 up to 14 million people employed in the restaurant industry. Our number of establishments is going up from what the book said of 945,000 to over 1 million establishments in the United States. And then finally, that sales I reported of 566 billion will be going up to over 700 billion. So that's from 2009 to 2015, a 6-year difference. So you can obviously see the growth in the food service industry, in the restaurant industry. And I think when we're discussing in these prior chapters the travel and tourism industry and the hospitality industry, the food service industry is one of the largest. Why? Because we utilize food service in our everyday lives. We're not necessarily traveling just to consume food at a restaurant. It's something that's kind of a part of our daily lives, whereas rental cars and the airline industry and the hotel industry are something that we kind of do less frequently. So as much as all of these areas are growing, the food service is something that's just kind of growing by leaps and bounds. Next, moving on, and I do ask a question on this week, is the different, again, the authors call it the restaurant segments. I call it the food service segments. I believe they give us 11 different segments. These segments range from what we call eating and drinking places. So this is what we would call a typical restaurant. And the book talks about full service restaurants, versus different ethnic cuisines. So the concepts of restaurants are very, very different, obviously, to a very small coffee shop. It elaborates a little bit in that, and I'm not worried too much about the details, but that that an eating and drinking establishment is what we would consider a typical restaurant. They go into other areas, and really this is important because we do realize that we don't just eat in restaurants. If we go to a sporting event or concerts, that would be kind of the entertainment segment, the sports segment. At colleges and universities, there's dining facilities. If we go to a hospital, God forbid we're in a hospital or we're visiting people, there's food services there. There's food services when we're traveling through trains. There's food service in airlines. So food service is in very, very many different sectors. And that chapter, the beginning of the chapter, kind of breaks down all of those. It even touches upon, correctional facilities. It talks a little bit about what we call a cyclical menu. So I do want you to be familiar with a number of those sectors. I don't think I would hold you accountable to all 11 of those, but I can truly tell you that on our next quiz, I will have a multiple choice question asking you about different segments, and you would at least be able to identify, which is not a segment, discussed in Chapter 4. So be able to identify them, not necessarily memorize all 11 of those. And there is a question this week, as I mentioned, on D2L. I'm asking you to give examples of I believe, 4 different segments. So doing a little bit of research online, citing the website that you found the information on, but again, to just familiarize yourself with the different segments. The chapter kind of continues with talking about concepts of starting a new restaurant. And they talk about both the successes and the failures of a new restaurant. I quote the authors when they say, restaurants are one of the easiest businesses to enter. And I think they kind of say that with a touch of sarcasm. As much as they're very easy to maybe enter, they're not very easy to keep the doors open and keep the business successful. I did a little bit of further research. I think it was Bloomberg News said that about 60% of restaurants actually are successful. They didn't really get into detail. A lot of times you hear that'll stay open longer than 2 years as a success rate. So we tend to get a lot of criticism about restaurants open and close pretty quickly. That 60% is pretty average of a typical business across sectors. So restaurants don't necessarily have more of a success rate or a failure rate. Many of you may find research that says different, but a typical business in general has about a 60% success rate. Our text talks about what are some kind of perceived failures. Why do people fail in the restaurant business? And the 3 that the text talks about are typically people have a lack of business knowledge. So they don't understand the business as a whole. Also talks about the technical skills. They've never been in the restaurant business. They don't know how to keep books. They don't know how to do inventory or order or make sure they're getting quotes from at least 3 different purveyors on in their inventory before they purchase. Maybe they don't have experience with hiring and in training employees. So those are 2 issues. And then the final one that text talks about is the lack of capital. So a lot of individuals might have enough money to, they think, to purchase a restaurant or to lease a restaurant, but they don't understand all of the work that that kind of comes into play before you even open your doors. A lot of times, too, they don't anticipate that maybe they're not going to turn a profit the first 6 months, 9 months, 12 months, a year, maybe not even until their 2nd year sometimes. So they have to have enough capital, enough investors to really cover their costs until they're projected to be profitable. So a lot of places, that's a key issue. So maybe I've seen a lot of restaurants that have a really great product. They've got really good food. Their service is good as well. But what generally happens is they don't have the capital to stay in business until they can turn a profit. So those are 3 areas, 3 common areas of really a lack of success for restaurants. In this discussion this week, I'm asking you to do a little bit of research to find a few more. Again, I'm encouraging you to use that grading rubric, to cite things, but to give me a few more reasons why restaurants aren't successful. And some of that can be your personal knowledge as well. And then finally, our chapter talks about how to build a successful restaurant. And there's a number of different ways, obviously. We've mentioned from the beginning you have to have a good product and a good service. Without those 2, you're not going to be successful. Obviously, it's the opposite of what the failure is. You have to have knowledge of the restaurant business, the restaurant industry, or at least hire someone that does. You need to know the technical skills. You do need to have the capital that's required to be successul. Another piece that the text kind of touch upon, and this is from Mr. Statler, who is a successful hotelier from the early 1900s, who said that the most important factor to a business's success is, you say, location, location, location. So obviously location. He said the three most important were really that one, location. And that is important. You really want to make sure that you're selecting a location that has, and our text talks about, it has curb appeal, that there's adequate parking, that's a clean, safe establishment as well. So the text talks about that. Understanding that you have a concept, that you have a theme, that your menu is diverse and appealing to your guests, that you create some type of ambiance. Remember, at the beginning I talked about creating a total experience. You need to be different than your competition. You need to understand kind of the wants and the needs of your customers. Depending where the location is, the people who live there might be very different from a different location that you select. So you have to look at the demographics. You have to look at the wants and needs of your customers, making sure the product that you have in mind is truly what they even need or what they even want. And then finally, we will touch more upon, the wants and needs of the customers when we talk about marketing later on in the book. So I don't want you to spend too much time on that, but I do want you to pick up on some successes, success stories, and some tips to be successful in the restaurant industry. Also, if you do, some of you are in our sales and marketing class already this semester, and those of you that are interested in kind of learning this sales and marketing piece more, I encourage you to, next time hospitality sales and marketing is offered, to enroll in that course as well, and we get into a lot more into detail of that. So that's chapter 4, the restaurant industry, from Vladimir and Angelo, and our textbook. Finally, just to touch upon the leader in you this week, there will be one discussion question that I will be posting that talks about expressing genuine interest in others. And I really want you to think about this. This chapter, to me, is a really important chapter. I think it really shows the human side of a leader, that you are there to lead your team, but that you're also there to show interest in them, that not just as an employee, but as a person. that you care about both their professional and their personal aspirations. And I think that's really a key quality in a good leader, is that your team can look at you as someone who genuinely cares about them, the business, and also your customers as well. So I will ask one question this week about you just giving me some examples from your past, maybe a past manager, or maybe even yourself, when you've expressed genuine interest in others. So I'm going to end it with that. I'm going to remind you to take a quick look again at that grading rubric, become familiar with that. Just like any other questions that you might have during the week, I encourage you to contact me earlier in the week so you have more than enough time to answer any of the discussion questions that we have later on in the week. So with that being said, I wish you luck with the week. Encourage you to contact me if you have any questions at all, and I will see you next week. Have a good one.